Hey, it's Jack, and this video is called The Number One Mistake That People Make After Heartbreak. Hey, welcome. If you're new to the channel, you haven't yet subscribed, I want to encourage you to go subscribe to the channel now. Just click the button and then tap the bell notification so you hear of new videos as soon as they come out. And listen, if you haven't taken my new webinar, it's called the Relationship Ready Preview, and it's the steps that me and my teaching partner Clayton Olson think that you need to take in order to be relationship ready. If that's at all of interest to you, just click the link below this video. It's the first link that you'll see, and then find a time that works for you in your time zone, and we will see you there. So, what's the number one mistake that people make after heartbreak? Well, this is a powerful distinction. I'm going to lay it out and then we can unpack it a little bit. So the distinction is the difference between being detached and unattached. The difference between being detached or detachment and being unattached or not having attachment. What I often see in the context of people who've had heartbreak or mistrust in relationships, or someone treat them really bad, or things really turn out in a way that they didn't think, or they've had the rug pulled from beneath them when they thought the relationship was going a certain way and then it ultimately didn't, is that there's a tendency to want to protect yourself, which is absolutely understandable. And one common way that I see that we protect ourselves, which could be necessary for a short bit of time, but it becomes a problem if it's actually an ongoing orientation that we have to our dating and relationships. And that is that we get to the place of, I don't really care anymore. You know, are there any good men out there? I don't really care anymore. I don't really care. I've had enough. I don't really want to put skin in the game. These are all kind of verbalizations of what I'm calling being detached. And it basically means that you've detached from your emotional center, your heart center. And so you're not really investing your emotions and your heart into getting to know someone. Now, if you've seen any of my videos, you know I talk a lot about breadcrumbing and ghosting and unavailable men. And absolutely, if you're in any of those situations, I'm not encouraging you to invest your emotions or heart in a relationship. So this is all about investing your emotions and heart in the right relationship. And obviously, sometimes that discernment can be difficult. But if you never get to the point where you're willing again to invest in that way, you're never actually going to attract in Mr. Right, right? You're never really going to be able to build a real relationship with someone, because a real relationship ultimately involves two hearts being able to be with one another, tuned to one another, growing together with one another. And that doesn't mean it's all going to be roses and chocolates, right? There's difficult territory for most of us to navigate there. But if we never open our hearts and we have a kind of detachment, it's very tricky for us to actually be in the right relationship, and it's very tricky for us to get fulfillment at all in this area of our lives. Now, sometimes that detachment can feel really skillful, right? It can feel very justified, right? It might feel righteous. It might be like, well, look, I've just been treated so bad, I just don't care anymore. And you might feel exasperated, exhausted, desperate. And you know, if any of these things are happening for you, I want to say I feel compassion for that, right? It can be really difficult if you feel like you've shown up time and again for a relationship and all you've gotten is repeating patterns, disappointment, unavailability, broken promises. Of course, there's part of you that might want to say, okay, enough. I'm holding my boundary. I'm not going to expose myself there. But if you've heard me talk to you about boundaries before, really the skillful boundary that most of us want is actually selective permeability. That's it's a cellular phrase, and it really means that we let the right things in and we keep the wrong things out. And if you're in relationship with someone, we actually want to start letting them in, we need to move beyond this just hardened detachment into actually being unattached. Unattached means I'm open to seeing where it might go. Unattached means I don't have an attachment to the outcome. Now, this isn't about actual attachment in terms of healthy, secure attachment in relationships. That's something else. I'm talking about unattached to the way it has to unfold, to the way it's going. That there's a non-attachment, if you will, in your orientation, that it might work out, it might not, I don't know. I'm curious to find out. I'm curious. Let's see. I'm going to surrender a little bit. I don't have to control this relationship. I don't have to make it work. I'm going to participate fully. I'm going to show up. And I'm going to see. Let's see what wants to happen here. Even that phrase, right? Rather than I'm making it happen, let's see what wants to happen. For a lot of us, that can just take the weight off our shoulders. But we don't want to have a false equivalence. We don't want to falsely make this equivalent to, and I don't care. And it doesn't really matter anyway. You know, a lot of people, they end up giving up on relationships, and I get it. It's because they've had a hard run, right? Totally get it. but it's not really what their heart wants, right? Their heart actually wants to be open. Hearts want to be opened. Hearts want to be connected. Hearts want to be attuned. Hearts want to be felt. Hearts want to be sensitive. And if you've gotten detached into the I don't care, you're probably blocking your heart center, and you're probably blocking that kind of emotional connection, which is what you most yearn for. Now, here's the trick. What might be helpful if you've cultivated a little bit of detachment, what might be helpful is that you've actually learned how to take things a little bit less personally. And that is something that's gold, right? A lot of the times when I'm working with my clients, what I'm actually helping them do is learn how to take things less personally. Learn how to not create a story that's not serving you. Learn not how to subjectify the other person, which means I know why you did a certain thing because I do that thing, and I'm assuming that the reason you do it is the reason I do it, right? So we start to understand we don't actually know what someone's motivations are for a certain behavior. We don't actually need to make meaning out of a particular behavior unless we really know what's going on or we've had the other person reveal to us. So learning how to be detached can feel like, cool, I'm learning to take things less personally. But of course, if you've never got your heart on the line, you will take things less personally, right? Because your heart isn't getting hurt. So this is subtle territory. You're getting a flavor of that. It's like, how do we keep our heart open? We do it by having selective permeability. So we have the right boundary. We know when we need to hold a boundary. We know when actually, yep, this is enough vulnerability for this stage of relating. We trust ourselves and we trust our intuitions to tell us, what is a right relationship that I can relax into? What is a relationship that's trustworthy? What does a guy that's trustworthy look like? And you might say, well, it's difficult, Jack. You know, maybe I've not had that in my life ever, right? Maybe my dad never showed up for me. Maybe I never even knew my dad. Or maybe I, got married young and my first husband broke my heart and I've never been able to open it again. Or maybe I've had a string of boyfriends that were just, kind of not good guys, not showing up, not taking care of you. So I get that. I get it, and maybe there's parts of it I can't even get because it's not from lived personal experience, but I have empathy for it. And all that said, most of you, I imagine, there's a part of you that is actually pretty dialed in intuitively to what is going on. And if you can get your thinking mind, your expectations, your fears, your doubts, you don't have to not have them, right? It's very human to have them. The question is, can you presence them? Question is, when those things come on board, can you say, oh, I'm fearful, I'm doubtful, right? Or I'm in a total fantasy and expectation about what could unfold and happen here. You can still have the fantasy, you just don't attach to it, right? You don't invest it as if it's the real thing. So if you can notice these things as they come in, then it's easier for you to what? To trust yourself. And in trusting yourself, it's much easier to notice, is this someone I want to keep investing, trusting in? Are they trustworthy? Are they showing up in a trustworthy way? If there's trustworthiness, and if there's selective permeability, aka appropriate boundaries, and this, by the way, none of this is about being perfect, right? These are all dynamic processes. Selective permeability, sometimes you might let something in and later that evening realize, oh yeah, I was a bit too open there, or actually, I was ready to leave way before I did and I want to step into that boundary sooner. That's called learning. That's called permission to learn. But if we're practicing selective permeability, we're practicing trusting ourselves and noticing therefore what can be trustworthy around us. From that foundation, it might be easier for you to start to open your heart because you're actually on your own side, right? You're not just falling over head over heels, you're not getting unsober, you're not getting drunk, so to speak, spiritually, and then noticing, oh, actually I was in a complete fantasy, delusion, and expectation, none of which had a basis in reality. You're doing your sobriety, boring sobriety practice that Jack has you do, but you're doing it in service of, hey, I want to open this. I want to open this heart. I don't want to have a detached heart. I want to have a fully attached heart, but I want to orient to the relationship in an unattached way until we know, hey, actually, yeah, we're really doing this, or there is some kind of commitment we want to build, right? You see that there's paradox in this. Sometimes people solve things simplistically. They say, okay, I've been hurt, boom. Even unconsciously, they decide, yeah, I'm going to lock it down. I'm going to just detach from life. There's too many problems. Relationships, too many problems. Men, too many problems. I'm going to focus over here. And whilst it's healthy to have healthy focus elsewhere, it can become its own form of unhealthiness because actually I'm not doing the work to grieve and heal, right? A broken heart wants to heal because a heart wants to be open. A heart wants to be able to open to the right people. Your heart wants the right selective permeability. It wants to open in the right situations. It doesn't want to open in a way that's going to have it be hurt unnecessarily. But there's no risk without reward. A heart has to risk some kind of being hurt in order that it's open in the way that it really wants to, right? So there's no non-risky love relationship that's worth its salt, right? Real relationship involves increasing risk, increasing dependence, hopefully a kind of healthy interdependence, right? It involves vulnerability, real vulnerability, perhaps being vulnerable in ways you've never been or wanted to be before. These are big things. None of them is easy. And it's worth it because that's ultimately what your heart is here to do, right? We talk about the higher heart or the awakened heart. When people use those phrases, what they mean are the evolution of the heart is towards increasing sensitivity to yourself as well as to other people, increasing intimacy, therefore, increasing authenticity, right? There's nothing that can speak like an authentic heart. You know it. You know it when it's phony and inauthentic, and you know it when someone's just boom, talking from their heart center. Is beautiful and precious, right? Your heart wants that, I imagine, and it wants to feel safe and trustworthy and have the right boundaries to support that. And if you've made the detachment move, that's going to be very hard for you to do. So if you're listening to this and you're like, yeah, okay, Jack, possibly I have been kind of detached. What do you do? Well, the first thing is awareness is curative. And what I mean by that is some kind of awareness in this territory is already going to help you. Even if you didn't specifically try and do anything different, just noticing, oh yeah, I'm doing that detached thing again. I'm pretending that I don't care. And actually, I need to go and have a bit of a cry, or I need to go and hit my journal, or I need to go and open up to a friend because I'm struggling inside here. I'm actually shut down to myself as well as to other people. And I don't want that. Sure, be shut down to the wrong guys, right? In the right situations, you can be shut down, but you don't want to be ongoingly shut down. You don't want to approach your dating from a place of being shut down because it doesn't attract the right thing in, right? And you might say, well, that's hard. I've had my heartbreak. I'm not here to say that this is easy. I'm here to say that it's worthwhile and that the costs of not doing this are much higher. The cost of not doing this is that you never get to have the intimacy with yourself, let alone another person. You never get to give your gifts and your service and your contribution fully. You never get to experience your love, right? That's what an open heart is, really. It's a loving heart. You'll never get to experience that fully if you're like, yeah, I don't care. And from I don't care, people can do all sorts of things. People can run businesses, they can build lives, they can, from a fearful, shut down heart place, you can still have on the surface what looks like a really normal, productive, perhaps highly successful life, but a successful heart isn't closed, right? And a successful life, in my view at least, you check it out for yourself, it needs to have a successful heart, or an open, authentic heart. That's priceless. And that comes from saying, hey, I've been detached. Okay, I'm actually going to work on opening this back up minutely in a titrated way, right? Which means you can calibrate how much openness you bring in at any time. Maybe do it with your trusted girlfriends. Maybe you can do it with someone in your family. Maybe you can do it with a stranger in a workshop. Maybe you can do it with a coach or a therapist. There's all sorts of ways that you can start to notice, yeah, actually I do want to talk about the deeper and richer contents of my heart. I do want to open my sensitivity to other people. And what I'm not going to do is make that mistake of doing it with the wrong guy, because that's the thing that got me hurt. And I'm going to have my trust online. I'm going to have my noticing. I'm going to slow things down. I'm going to sober up. All of this stuff, right? Sobriety, I talk a lot about it. It's really not sexy, but it is because it relates to the foundation upon which you can have a more open heart. That's a great thing, right? That's probably what you want. That's probably what most of us yearn for in connection with ourselves and with other people and with life more generally. And it comes from noticing that detachment and saying, I'm actually done with that. And I'm going to learn the selective part. I'm going to learn to open in the right places and to close in the places where it's not supportive. If my intuition is that I'm not really safe and it's not just some fear that I'm spinning out on, maybe I'm not going to open there. But I'm not going to stand for a life that is detached from its heart, because a life that's detached from heart is devoid of purpose, meaning, authenticity, realness, real connection. It's a huge cost that people pay for shutting down in this territory. And they shut down for good reason, but we don't want your entire love life governed by a guy that wasn't good for you, right? Or by a guy that hurt you in the past. That's a travesty, because not only did maybe this person not look out for you, now they've become your default blueprint for what you're doing in your life. That's not your life, right? You're living someone else's life, or you're living the past. And a lot of this work is about really opening to the present, to the here, the now, being willing to feel things, but not willing to live where the past is governing, that there's some strategy that you had to learn back then to be safe with an unsafe guy, that's become somehow your default. Being unattached means you can actually surrender to the flow, you can surrender to the unfolding. And that may be really scary to you. You may not have lived your life in that way. You may have been quite locked down on things, controlling of things, like controlling the outcome, making it happen. And there's definitely a time and a place for that in life. And when it comes to the unfolding of a relationship, if you can open a little bit to that uncertainty, like, I don't know yet if this is my guy. I don't know yet if I actually really want a relationship. We've only been on a few dates. Let me slow it down, chill out, and see if I can surrender. The knowingness of the relationship will come in time. Life will support you there if you let it. Life will have you know, yeah, this is somewhere that I want to invest in opening. And of course, if you're like any of us, it's not just, oh yeah, 3 years ago I opened in the relationship and I've been open ever since. No, most of us, particularly in the feminine essence, is going to be more like a flower, right? That's going to have this open and closing. And that's part of being in a relationship. But I'm saying if you've never opening, right, it's fine that you might close sometimes, right? Or something hurts you and you close and you need to open back up. That's fine. And the job of the masculine is to support that where it can. But if you have default that you're just closed, right? A flower that's closed, at some level, it stops to become a flower, right? If the essence of the flower is its fragrance and its color and its vitality and its communication, right? It's beaming of like, hey, it's like, here I am, I'm a beautiful flower, come pollinate me, right? Come be a bee and come visit. If that flower is always closed, it's not really doing the essence of what it is to be a flower. If you are always closed and detached, you're probably not being the essence of what is your true nature, your true essence. And that's what we want, right? That's the real you. That's what we want to call forth. And the way that we do that is by noticing these places where we're like, yeah, actually, I'm kind of clamped down here. I'm pretty attached to this outcome. I'm pretty attached that this needs to go somewhere. I've had so many bad dates that this one guy that's kind of interested, I'm kind of attached that I need to make it go somewhere. And we learn how to relax on that. Not making yourself wrong, not having the inner critic in the back door, not telling yourself that you're stupid or you're dumb or you made the same mistake. Being kind, talking well to yourself, but also being a good coach. Sometimes that might be challenging, like, hey, a lot of times people can get off on cynicism, right, and think that it's smart. Just to be cynical about the world is smart because it keeps you safe in certain situations. Sometimes you doubt people that other people don't doubt, and then eventually they show their true colors and you're like, I told you so. But that's a strategy for staying safe. Cynicism is a strategy for staying safe. Detachment from your heart is a strategy for staying safe. And safety has its place, but it's not like the true safety. There's, a heart fully expressed has a safety that is different than the kind of safety you have from being detached. Right? It's like a flower that's closed. It's safe in certain ways, but it's actually no longer being a flower, and it's no longer open to exchange and communion and being able to be visited, fertilized, all these things that are part of the life of a flower. I mean, here we are, we've got some flowers around. I'm not a botanist here, but you get the point that I'm trying to point to. That is that we want your openness, your essence, your heart, your authenticity, your realness. We want all these things online, and they're not online if you've detached in your heart. And you detached for good reason. We don't want to make you wrong for that. You detached, it was probably what you needed to do to stay safe in a situation that wasn't good for you. But we don't want that to be the new baseline. We want to notice like, oh yeah, over time, I actually want to be able to open so that I can actually be in relationship with myself and be in relationship with other people. That's my hope and prayer for you. If that's what you want, may it be so. Thanks so much for listening. Questions and comments below the video. I'm really curious how this is landing with you. I know we covered quite a lot in this video. If you haven't taken the webinar, just click that link, find a time that works for you in your time zone. As always, I look forward to reading your comments. I'm Jack. Thanks for being here.